Welcome to Transition 201. The purpose of this module is to discuss the expanded core curriculum and explain its role in the transition process. Let's start with a general overview of transition planning. As we discussed in Module 1, Transition 101, transition planning is a student-focused process of planning for life after high school. This might include planning for post-secondary education, employment, independent living, community services, and socialization opportunities. Transition planning should absolutely include the student. Transition planning should also include the entire IEP team, including parents, teachers, support specialists for the blind and visually impaired, adult services providers, and others. Finally, transition planning helps the student to develop and practice important self-advocacy skills which are crucial for adult living. The term core curriculum means the educational content that is expected to be included in a student's educational experience. The core curriculum for all students includes English, mathematics, health, fine arts, social studies, economics, history, and vocational education. In accordance with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, students who are blind or who have visual impairments are mandated to receive the same core curriculum as other students. Educational experts in the field of visual impairment have long agreed that there are specific content areas outside of the core curriculum that are also critical for students with visual impairments to fully participate in society. These disability-specific content areas have become known as the Expanded Core Curriculum, or ECC. ECC is the body of knowledge and skills needed by students with visual impairments in order to be successful in post-secondary pursuits. The ECC is particularly important for students with visual impairments because they often miss or learn concepts in an incomplete manner. The ECC contains 9 core content areas, which will each be briefly discussed here. The first is orientation and mobility, or O&M. O&M is essential so that students will be able to live independently and fully integrate into society. The second ECC core area is assistive technology, or AT. Although assessing AT enables students with visual impairments to overcome many obstacles to independence and employment, research indicates that as many as 71% of those who could benefit from AT do not have access to it. Third, career education. Research supports the benefit of the early exploration of potential career options, as well as exposure to a variety of work sites in the community. Beginning this process early helps students to begin to understand essential work concepts and associated skills. The fourth ECC content area is social interaction skills. Appropriate social skills are critical to one's success in the adult world, and by learning these skills early, students are better positioned to participate fully in life. Fifth, compensatory access. Compensatory access skills include Braille fluency, large print materials, and tactile symbols. These skills provide A, access to information, B, the ability to communicate, and C, literacy. The sixth Expanded core curriculum area is recreation and leisure. Activities in traditional physical education classes are appropriate for students with blindness or visual impairments, but many students also benefit from being taught additional recreational and leisure activities that they can enjoy throughout their adult lives. The seventh ECC area is independent living skills. Independent living skills are needed to perform important tasks and functions necessary for independence and include appropriate hygiene, food preparation, and money management skills. Sensory efficiency skills include instruction on how to optimize one's available senses. In other words, how to use one's functional vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. As a result of learning to use their senses effectively, students with visual impairments are better prepared to participate in activities of daily living. And finally, self-determination. Added to the ECC in 2003, self-determination skills are important for all individuals and include self-knowledge, self-advocacy, and empowerment, assertiveness, and informed decision-making. The ECC is considered critical to providing opportunities to students with visual impairments. So much so that not teaching these skills is considered by some to be denying a basic human right. In fact, the IDEA of 2004 mandated that these functional outcomes be documented in a student's IEP, which is essential to ensuring that all ECC goals are being met for each student. One of the most effective ways of teaching ECC skills is to work to incorporate them directly into the student's current daily schedule. Examples include working in groups to develop social skills, learning about different jobs to improve career education, and learning how to manage money to facilitate the development of independent living skills. Exactly how and in what manner should the ECC be delivered within the general education continues to present challenges associated with sufficient time, available money, and well-trained teachers. Although ECC skills may be being taught, little is known about how students and parents are informed about skill attainment. Due to these challenges, it is not likely that students with visual impairments will be able to learn all of the essential ECC skills in their core curriculum courses. Clearly, receiving the necessary ECC skills in one's school is not always easy for students with visual impairments. Because of the challenges, summer camps for students with visual impairments have emerged as an alternative way of teaching students the critical ECC skills. In Oregon, the Summer Work Experience Program, or SWEP, offers students hands-on opportunities to develop work readiness, self-efficacy, and essential skills of independent living. SWEP is a 5 to 6 week residential program for Oregon youth 16 to 20 who are legally blind. More information about the SWEP program can be found at http://www.org/blind/vision/ capital P A G E S / capital S, capital W, capital E, capital P, period, ASPX. For all youth, including those with blindness or visual impairments, there is a clear link between early work experience and post-school employment. In fact, having held multiple jobs while in high school is associated with increased post-high school employment opportunities. There are a couple potential reasons for this. One, potential employers may look favorably on a solid work history. Two, multiple jobs may afford students the opportunities to learn critical social skills. And three, different jobs may allow students to explore a number of potential career options. There is not an agreed-upon formula for the type of work experience that is best for preparing students with visual impairments for future employment success. There are a number of options, which include job shadowing, school-based enterprises, inclusive service learning projects, job sampling, internships and apprenticeships, paid work experiences, and mentoring. Collaboration, an essential component of student success. Interagency collaboration between the Commission for the Blind, OCB, and/or the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, OVR, and other key stakeholders in the community is well documented to be important to achieving positive post-school outcomes for youth with significant disabilities. Not only is collaboration warranted because of improved student outcomes, interagency collaboration is a federally mandated component of the student's individualized transition planning process. What if a partner agency cannot fulfill its designated service under the student's transition plan? One potential challenge that may present during the transition planning process is when one or more partners is unable to fulfill its role. In this case, which of the following three statements seems to be a reasonable solution? 1. The school is not required to develop alternative solutions as they can only do so much. 2. The school might want to consider other strategies to meet the transition goal and objectives. Or 3. The school must reconvene the Admissions and Release Committee or the IEP team to identify alternative strategies to meet the student's transition objectives set out in the IEP. What do you think? The correct answer is C, that the school must reconvene the Admissions and Release Committee or the IEP team to identify alternative strategies to meet the student's transition objectives set out in the IEP. The ultimate responsibility for ensuring that the transition services identified in the student's IEP rest on the school district. Be aware, however, that although the school district is responsible, this does not mean that outside agencies like vocational rehabilitation can choose to not provide services to the student if the school district fails. If the student is eligible for services, the outside agency has an obligation to provide them. A lot of information has been presented in this module, and it is important to provide a quick recap of the key points. In order for students with blindness or VI to be best prepared for life after high school, it is important for several things to occur. 1. There must be effective collaboration between educators, parents, service organizations, and most importantly, the student. 2. All parties need to become familiar with the ECC and why it is necessary. 3. There needs to be a commitment by both parents and educators to ensure adequate implementation of the ECC. And 4. Students must be afforded opportunities to gain employment experience while in high school. The next section will be a list of 6 resources on this topic. These resources include the American Foundation for the Blind, the American Printing House for the Blind, the Oregon Blind and Visually Impaired Student Fund, the Expanded Core Curriculum for Blind and Visually Impaired Students, the Oregon Commission for the Blind, and the Oregon Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. American Foundation for the Blind, AFB. The AFB is a national nonprofit that expands possibilities for more than 25 million people with vision loss in the U.S. https://www.afb.org. American Printing House for the Blind. The American Printing House for the Blind promotes independence of blind and visually impaired persons by providing specialized materials, products, and services needed for the education and life. https://www.aph.org/. Oregon Blind and Visually Impaired Student Fund, BVIS. BVIS provides services for those who are visually impaired throughout the state. https://oregon.bvis/home. Expanded Core Curriculum for Blind and Visually Impaired Students, including those with additional disabilities. The ECC is a body of knowledge and skills that are needed by students with visual impairments due to their unique disability-specific needs. PROFEVERMENT/TEACHERS/EX dash CORE dash CURRICULUM /1, 2, 3, 4. Oregon Commission for the Blind, http://www.org/pages/index/ASPX. Oregon Office for Vocational Rehabilitation, VR, assist individuals with disabilities to get and keep a job that matches their skills, interest, and abilities. http://www.org/pages/index/ASPX. The next section will be a list of 9 references on this topic. They include titles of books, journal articles, and articles retrieved from internet websites. Please note the following disclaimer. Alonzo, capital L, 1987, Unique Educational Needs of Learners with Visual Impairments, East Lansing, Michigan, Hanna Technology and Research Center. Curry, capital S, capital A, and Hatlin, capital P, capital H, 1988. Meeting the unique educational needs of visually impaired pupils through appropriate placement. Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness, Volume 82, pages 417 through 424. Hatlin, capital P, 2005. C/here, An Amazing Movement, retrieved from http://www.tsbvi.edu/tb-ecc. Hatlin, capital P, 1996. The core curriculum for blind and visually impaired students, including those with additional disabilities. RE:\View, Volume 28, pages 25 through 32. Hubner, capital K, capital M, comma, Merck-Adam, capital B, comma, Stryker, capital D, and Wolf, capital K, 2004. The National Agenda for the Education of Children and Youth with Visual Impairments, including those with multiple disabilities. New York, capital A, capital F, capital B, Press. Kelly, capital S, capital M, 2009. Use of assistive technology by students with visual impairments. Findings from a national survey. Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness. Volume 103, parentheses 8, parentheses, pages 470 through 480. Kohler, capital P, capital D, and Hood, capital L, 2000. Improving Student Outcomes. Promising Practices and Programs for 1999 through 2000. Champaign, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Transition Research Institute. Luking, capital R, capital G, and Fabian, capital E, capital S, 2000. Paid Internships and Employment Success for Youth in Transition. Career Development for Exceptional Individuals. Volume 23, pages 205 through 221. Wolf, capital K, 1996. Career Education for Students with Visual Impairments. Capital R, capital E, View. Volume 28, pages 89 through 93. Please note the following disclaimer. The contents of this presentation were developed with support from the Vocational Rehabilitation Technical Assistance Center for Targeted Communities, VRTAC-TC, Project E3, at the Department of Rehabilitation and Disability Studies, Southern University, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, through a subcontract to the University of Kentucky, funded by the U.S. Department of Education Rehabilitation Services Administration. Grant number H264F15003. Any opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this material are those of the author, plural, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the U.S. Department of Education, SUBR, or the other organizations mentioned throughout this presentation.